The most dangerous man isn't the one who lies to you. It's the one who makes you question what you know, quietly, calmly, with a smile. He doesn't raise his voice. He lowers it. He doesn't fight the truth. He bends it, just enough to make you second-guess your instincts. And the moment he sees you figured him out, he doesn't back down. He upgrades. That's what most people miss. When a manipulator's exposed, he doesn't panic. He refines. He becomes more polished, more logical. He starts speaking in reason, showing you proof, playing calm, not to make peace, but to make you doubt what you saw. That's the final move. And it's not a mistake, it's a strategy. This is where the Stoic takes a different path. No arguments, no justifications, no need for closure, just quiet clarity and a clean exit. In this video, we'll expose 6 subtle tactics bad men use when they know you know, and how to counter each one with strength, silence, and self-trust, not through conflict, but through complete detachment. If you've ever been made to question your truth after seeing someone clearly, this is your reminder. Your clarity was never the problem. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's begin.
Number 1.
He turns calm into control. It begins with a shift that seems, at first, like progress. He's no longer raising his voice, no longer defending himself with the usual fury. Instead, he appears evolved, polished, grounded. And for a moment, you might think he's changed, that he's finally listening, finally understanding. But this is not growth. This is strategy. You see, once a manipulative man realizes his aggression no longer works on you, he doesn't stop manipulating. He changes the method. He trades chaos for composure. Not because he's found peace, but because he's discovered that silence, when used deliberately, is a far more powerful weapon than noise. He starts speaking slowly, measured. He gives you space to speak, just enough to make you question whether you've been too hard on him. And in this space of politeness, a new danger enters: self-doubt. But a Stoic sees this for what it is, not transformation, but performance. Marcus Aurelius warned that a calm mind is strength, but only when it is rooted in truth. A manipulator mimics that calm not to heal, but to control the tempo of the conversation, to reset the atmosphere, to rewrite the rules without rewriting the wrong. This is not about peace. It's about positioning, and the test always comes next. You bring up the pain, the deceit, the betrayal. He doesn't deny it. He doesn't fight. He simply deflects with ease. I don't want to argue. He says, can't we just move forward? Suddenly, the burden is on you. The one still carrying the wound becomes the problem, not because you're wrong, but because you still feel. And that's the trap. His calm becomes a mirror, subtly suggesting that your clarity is emotional instability, that your anger is immaturity. And if you're not deeply grounded in yourself, you'll start to apologize for having boundaries. This tactic is ancient. It's psychological sleight of hand. And it works because humans crave resolution. We want things to make sense. We want closure. And manipulators know that if they appear calm enough, long enough, we'll start believing they must be right, that our memory must be flawed, that our reactions must be too much. But here's the Stoic response. Do not explain. Do not defend. Do not collapse into his tone. Instead, return to what you know. Peace without truth is not peace. Calm without accountability is not growth. It's control, dressed in restraint. Seneca once wrote, "It is the power of the mind to be unconquerable, and in this moment, your mind must remain unmoved. Let him perform, let him craft the illusion. Your job is not to decode his calm, it's to anchor in your own. Don't debate what you lived through. Don't match his silence with confusion. Match it with clarity. Ask, is this calm rooted in truth, or is it silence used to avoid it?" You protect your peace by refusing to rent space in your soul to performance. And that begins with recognizing that not all stillness is sincere. Some men sit quietly not to listen, but to wait for you to soften, to forget, to move on. But the Stoic doesn't forget the lesson. He doesn't replay the pain, but he remembers the pattern. There's a story about Eleanor Roosevelt. When a political rival publicly slandered her, then later tried to make peace through charm and compliments, she didn't attack, she didn't engage. She simply kept her distance and let his words fall on the floor. No retaliation, no conversation, just distance. That's power, and that's Stoicism. Not through silence that tolerates harm, but through silence that refuses to dignify illusion. Because here's the truth. Not everyone who speaks gently is safe, and not everyone who stays silent is wise. Sometimes silence is used as a shield, not to protect peace, but to avoid accountability. That's why Stoicism is not about appearing calm, but about being grounded. And grounding yourself means trusting what you felt the moment the mask slipped, before the explanations, before the charm, before the reset. So when he turns calm into control, you don't have to shout, you don't have to argue, you just have to stay awake. Stillness is only strength when it's real. And if his version of calm asks you to forget what happened, betray your boundaries, or lower your voice, then it's not peace, it's pressure, and you're no longer available for it. The Stoic walks away, not because he's weak, but because he sees, and seeing clearly is the beginning of freedom.
Number 2.
He gaslights with logic. After calm fails to neutralize you, he reaches for something sharper, something dressed in reason. Now, he doesn't manipulate through emotion. He manipulates through facts, emails, screenshots, carefully chosen timestamps. He brings data to the discussion, not to clear the air, but to cloud it. Suddenly, you're not arguing about what happened. You're arguing about when it happened, who said what first, what time a message was sent. And in the middle of all that noise, your truth begins to feel unprovable. This is one of the most dangerous forms of manipulation, because it hides behind the appearance of intelligence. It sounds rational, measured, but what it actually does is bury you in details until you forget how tired you are from just trying to be heard. He doesn't need you to believe him. He just needs you to stop believing yourself. The Stoics warned us long ago. External proof means nothing if the inner signal has already spoken. Epictetus taught that the mind must govern itself, not through persuasion, but through perception. When a man uses logic to erase your lived experience, that's not truth. It's distortion, because facts can be selected, timelines adjusted, but what can't be faked is how your body reacts in the presence of deceit. That tension, that anxiety, that sense of mental fog, that's not you being too sensitive. That's the wisdom of your nervous system, speaking before your mind catches up. More insidious is how this tactic reshapes your confidence. When someone constantly corrects your version of events, you begin to second-guess everything. You ask yourself, am I being dramatic? Was it really that bad? But even beneath the confusion, the truth remains. Your exhaustion is evidence, your doubt is the residue, and your fatigue is the signal that his logic has never been neutral. It's been loaded. It's tempting to fight back, to gather your own proof, to argue point by point. But now you're in his courtroom, where he shifts the rules and moves the goalposts. He wants you explaining. He wants you proving. Because as long as you're justifying, you're not detaching. And as long as you're debating, you're not healing. So what does the Stoic do? He pauses. He returns inward. He doesn't argue to win. He observes to understand. Instead of chasing the final word, he listens for the first signal. Unease, and that feeling alone is enough. A Stoic doesn't need eloquence to convince him when the energy underneath it is corrupted. As Marcus Aurelius put it, if someone can prove me wrong, I will gladly change. But when someone isn't seeking truth, only control, there is no argument to win. There is only a boundary to draw. In Stoic thinking, clarity isn't about collecting better arguments. It's about subtracting illusion. Gaslighting, even with logic, is illusion wearing a suit. The Stoic sees through the surface and looks at intent. And once he sees that reason is being used to dominate rather than liberate, he walks away. Consider Oprah Winfrey. At the height of her influence, she was criticized by commentators who twisted her intentions, using seemingly logical arguments. But instead of defending herself at every turn, she stepped back. She chose presence over performance, and eventually her consistency spoke louder than any rebuttal. That's Stoicism in practice. Not the absence of emotion, but the discipline to refuse distraction. What matters most is self-trust. The Stoic knows that not all truth needs defending. You don't need a spreadsheet to justify your exhaustion. You don't need screenshots to explain why your spirit feels violated. When your soul is tired of proving the obvious, it's time to stop arguing, not because you lost, but because the game was rigged. Gaslighting with logic is the last refuge of a man who's losing emotional control. It's not insight, it's insecurity disguised as intellect. But reason without virtue is just manipulation with polish. The Stoic recognizes this. He doesn't match cleverness with more cleverness. He leaves. So when logic is used not to clarify but to confuse, when it demands silence from your instincts, you don't try harder. You walk away smarter. Let them keep their evidence. You'll keep your peace. Because at the end of the day, it's not about winning the debate. It's about not needing to be in it. The Stoic doesn't need the crowd's agreement. He only needs the quiet certainty that he's not crazy for trusting what he lived through.
Number 3.
He rallies others against you. When calm fails and logic falls short, the manipulator marches to the court of public opinion. He no longer tries to control you directly. Instead, he seeks to control how others see you. He begins curating a narrative that paints him as patient, misunderstood, even noble, while casting you as unstable, unforgiving, or erratic. He doesn't make wild accusations. He makes quiet suggestions, a well-timed sigh, a soft, "I just don't know what happened to them." He isn't seeking advice. He's sowing doubt. Every seed of doubt is planted carefully in a trusted friend, a mutual acquaintance, a concerned family member. Each one is invited to witness his maturity and feel compassion for his confusion. He counts on their sympathy to do what he can no longer do himself. Isolate you, not with cruelty, but with narrative. This tactic works because it exploits one of our deepest needs, the need to be understood. The Stoics warned us about this. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." That's easier said than done when the people turning away are those you trusted. When your name becomes a soft rumor in rooms you're no longer welcome in. When your silence is mistaken for guilt and your retreat becomes proof. So what does the Stoic do when the world around him starts to shift? First, he refuses to outsource his identity, Seneca wrote. He who seeks approval from the crowd has already sold himself to it. This is the first shield. Understanding that who you are is not a group decision, your character is not a vote, it is the pattern of your life. And so instead of defending yourself to every friend, every cousin, every coworker, you double down on consistency, you stop chasing their understanding and start embodying your own truth. This doesn't mean silence at all costs. If someone asks in good faith, speak once, calmly and clearly, but don't rehearse, don't rehash, and don't relive the entire play. Clarity is something you offer, not something you perform. The manipulator thrives on repetition. The Stoic speaks the truth once, then returns to living it. Consider Michelle Obama. For years, she endured an avalanche of stereotypes. Cold, angry, ungrateful. She did not fight them all head-on. She didn't host interviews to dismantle every rumor. She anchored herself in her work, her poise, her presence. Over time, her dignity told a story no rumor could erase. That's Stoicism under pressure. Not resistance, but radiant restraint. Still, endurance without bitterness requires discipline. When gossip rises, the mind spins. Imagined arguments, drafted rebuttals, confrontations that never happen. The Stoic interrupts this mental theater by asking one question: is this within my control? Gossip is not, but your focus is, so you return to your breath, to your posture, to the life in front of you, instead of the lies behind your back. There's wisdom in showing up. He expects you to disappear in shame. Instead, you arrive not louder, not colder, but grounded, not to argue your innocence, but to let reality contrast fiction. Eventually, the audience he tried to recruit begins to see. The story doesn't match the behavior, the performance falls apart. Adjust your rhythm. When he raises the drama, lower the volume. When he spreads gossip, you shrink your disclosure. This disrupts his momentum. He is left campaigning alone, and when there's no opponent, the campaign starts to look desperate. Remember, a reputation rebuilt through performance is fragile, but a reputation rebuilt through time and integrity is untouchable. If they refuse to see you, let them, Seneca reminds us. A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. Let the friction refine you. Because at the core of Stoicism is this truth: you don't prove your worth, you practice it daily. So when he rallies others against you, don't argue for space, become the space. Don't fight for your name, live it. The Stoic doesn't panic when the crowd turns. He returns to his center, and in time the truth speaks. Not in volume, but in persistence. You are not here to win public favor. You are here to stand with your soul. And the soul, when anchored in principle, does not explain. It endures.
Number 4.
He offers intimacy to silence you. When logic no longer works and his social campaign begins to crack, the manipulator reaches for something far more disarming: closeness. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't take responsibility. He simply becomes warm, gentle, romantic even. He says your name with softness. He texts you late at night. Not to explain, but to check in. Suddenly, the same person who denied your pain yesterday is now inviting you to dinner. He's not seeking repair. He's offering comfort in place of accountability, and that is the trap. Because this form of manipulation doesn't feel like harm. It feels like relief. It feels like the conflict is finally ending. The tension is dissolving. You want to believe it. You want to believe this is growth, that maybe the storm passed and you've made it through. But here's what the Stoic sees. The storm didn't pass, it just changed form. This is not healing, it's erasure. The issue hasn't been resolved, it's being covered with affection. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." But calm isn't found in false affection. Calm is rooted in truth. And when intimacy arrives in place of truth, not because of it, it becomes a sedative. It quiets your instincts. It softens your boundaries. It tells your nervous system, maybe it wasn't that bad. And suddenly you're sitting across from someone who hurt you deeply, smiling through a dinner that tastes like denial. The Stoic response here is radical honesty. Not with them, but with yourself. Ask, has anything changed, truly? Or has the discomfort just been buried beneath comfort? The Stoic doesn't reject love, but he insists that love must come with clarity, as Epictetus reminds us. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. If you value dignity, you cannot trade it for a few days of attention. You cannot accept warmth that's being used to buy your silence. What makes this moment so disorienting is how natural it feels. Emotional manipulation rarely announces itself. It feels like relief, and that's why it works. But if you look closely, you'll notice the words that are missing. There's no apology, no ownership, just a vague desire to move forward. The past isn't acknowledged, it's skipped. And when you're hurt but encouraged to forget, it's not forgiveness. It's erasure dressed as grace. A real-world example comes from the life of Maya Angelou. After suffering deep betrayals from people close to her, she didn't return to the comfort they offered. She didn't seek temporary peace. She chose distance, not out of bitterness, but out of respect for her own clarity. She famously said, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time." That is Stoicism, not through rigidity, but through remembered reality. And that's what this stage requires. Remembrance. Remember the nights you cried, the anxiety in your chest, the way you second-guessed your worth just to hold the relationship together. Do not let one soft night erase 100 hard ones. The Stoic honors emotions, but he does not let them negotiate with his principles. Now let's be clear, this isn't about becoming cold, it's about becoming precise. Love, when genuine, is never afraid of hard conversations. It does not flee from accountability. It does not seduce you into silence. If their affection comes only after your boundaries, it's not love, it's strategy. And the Stoic sees the difference. When false intimacy is offered, your task is not to condemn it, but to test it. Does this connection include truth? Is the pain acknowledged? Is the change visible or only suggested? Seneca once said, "He who is brave is free." And bravery in this moment looks like walking away from warmth that weakens you. It looks like saying no to the dinner, the kiss, the temporary closeness, because you're finally loyal to the truth. So when he offers intimacy to silence you, remember, what you truly need is not closeness, it's clarity, not comfort, but peace. And peace doesn't come from pretending, it comes from seeing. The Stoic does not push love away, but he does not mistake it for truth. And if love is real, it will survive your boundary. If it's not, your boundary will reveal it.
Number 5.
He pretends nothing happened. This is the quietest tactic, and the most haunting. One morning, after days or weeks of tension, the manipulator returns with a smile, as if nothing was said, as if no harm was done. There's no apology, no reference to the conflict, no acknowledgement of the rupture. Instead, he texts you a meme, makes a joke, starts a conversation about something trivial. It feels strange, disorienting, like waking up in a house that was on fire last night, only to find someone serving you coffee in the ruins. But this isn't kindness, it's calculation. He's not moving on, he's testing your memory, testing how much pain you're willing to ignore just to feel normal again. He's not rebuilding trust, he's sweeping the damage under a rug and watching to see if you'll help him fold the corners. Because if you do, he knows he still has access, not to your time, but to your denial. The Stoics warned us not to mistake peace for avoidance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." And here, strictness means refusing to play along with delusion. It means refusing to accept normalcy that arrives without accountability. Because if you allow someone to erase your pain without confronting it, what they're erasing isn't just the past. It's your sense of what's real. This tactic is effective because it preys on exhaustion. You're tired of the tension, you miss the simplicity, you long for the relationship that existed before the hurt. And when he pretends nothing happened, it's tempting to follow his lead, not out of weakness, but out of fatigue. But the Stoic sees clearly, pretending is not peace, it's performance. and it always comes at the cost of truth. The test here is internal. It's not about how he behaves. It's about what you are willing to participate in. The Stoic response is to remain internally anchored, even when the external script tries to rewrite itself. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." This is your moment to prove yourself, not to him, but to your own clarity. Will you participate in the fiction, or will you remain loyal to what actually happened? Let's look at a real example. After experiencing years of betrayal and subtle erasure in her personal relationships, Oprah Winfrey shared that one of her greatest breakthroughs was learning to stop dancing around the truth. Instead of resuming old dynamics for the sake of peace, she held her line. Even when it meant silence, even when it meant losing people, because she knew false harmony is a cage. It keeps you in relationships that exist only in theory, never in reality. And this is the deep lesson. When someone pretends nothing happened, they're asking you to value comfort over clarity. But the Stoic knows that comfort without truth is just anesthesia. It numbs the pain, but preserves the injury. True peace begins only after the truth has been seen, spoken, and processed. That doesn't always mean confrontation. Sometimes it just means non-participation. The refusal to reply to the meme, the stillness in response to the fake laughter, the quiet strength to say, "I'm not ready to talk like everything is fine." You don't have to shout. You just have to stop pretending. This moment is where emotional discipline matters most. You will be tempted to go back, to enjoy the illusion, but illusions cost more than they give. They rob you of your self-respect. They teach the other person that your pain has an expiration date. That time, not truth, is the ticket to forgiveness. And once you teach someone that, they never have to grow, because they can always wait. The Stoic refuses to live in a world that must be rewritten to feel safe. He chooses the discomfort of truth over the comfort of fantasy. And if the other person cannot meet you there, then peace in this case must come from distance, not denial. So when he pretends nothing happened, don't follow his lead. Don't let the silence rewrite the story. You don't have to scream, you just have to stay still. Let him walk through the ruins with his coffee. But you remember the fire, and that memory is your protection. Because some things don't need to be fixed, they need to be faced, and the Stoic, above all, is faithful to what is real. Number 6, he tests what he can still get away with. When all other tactics fail, when charm, logic, silence, and affection no longer pull you back, he tries one last move, subtle provocation. He doesn't attack you outright. He doesn't reignite the argument. Instead, he starts small, a sarcastic comment, a boundary pushed just an inch, a joke that sounds harmless, but lands like a jab. He's not looking to restart the conflict. He's looking to measure your threshold, to see if you've really changed, or if you're still available for the old dance. This is the final test of your resolve, he wants to know. Are you truly done, or are you still halfway in, flinching at his approval, hoping for validation? Because if he can still make you react, if he can still get under your skin, then he knows the door isn't closed, it's just cracked, and all he has to do is push. The Stoics would call this a test of sovereignty, your sovereignty. Epictetus taught, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And here self-mastery isn't loud, it's not dramatic, it's quiet, internal, and deliberate. It means not reacting when provoked, not explaining when baited. It means seeing the test for what it is, not a conversation, but a measurement. What makes this tactic dangerous is its subtlety, because the manipulator knows that overt abuse will drive you away, so instead he offers confusion wrapped in charm. He says something questionable, then adds, "I'm just kidding." He violates a boundary, then laughs. You're being too sensitive, and if you call it out, you're painted as rigid. But if you don't, you've just silently renegotiated your standards. That's how power creeps back in, through the cracks of your silence. So what does the Stoic do? He steps back, not physically, but mentally. He becomes the observer. He listens not just to the words spoken, but to the intent underneath. And when he detects manipulation, he doesn't announce it. He doesn't argue it. He simply disengages. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion, and in that silence you exercise your power, not by withdrawing in pain, but by withholding permission." Because ultimately, every manipulative test is a question. Do I still have access to you? And your response must be a sentence without words. You show them through your boundaries that access is no longer granted. Not with a speech, not with rage, but with dignity. Let's look at a real example. Viola Davis, in her memoir, spoke about how she handled people who repeatedly disrespected her boundaries through subtle digs and passive-aggressive control. Instead of fighting each insult, she began to withdraw access. She stopped explaining herself, stopped attending every emotional invitation. Over time, her silence became its own form of resistance. A resistance grounded not in anger, but in awareness. That's Stoicism in motion. It's not about becoming immune to hurt. It's about becoming unwilling to surrender your self-respect just to keep the peace. And that's what this moment demands. A deep, principled stillness. It may feel strange at first. You might feel cold. You might feel like you're overreacting. But remember, they're not confused about what they're doing. They're confused about why it no longer works. And that confusion is not yours to resolve. It's theirs to sit with. Your only job is to maintain your standard, to remain unavailable for the dynamics that drained you. Because the moment you break your silence to justify, to explain, to manage their reaction, you've stepped back into their frame. The Stoic refuses that. He holds his frame. He doesn't flinch when provoked. He doesn't react when tested. He simply remains. Because the ultimate form of clarity is consistency, not loud, not public, just constant. And that consistency slowly teaches others. The game is over. The door is closed. You are no longer participating in your own erosion. So when he tests what he can still get away with, don't correct him, don't argue, don't rise to the bait. Just watch. Let him speak into silence. Let his tactics echo without response. And in that silence, he will hear your decision louder than words ever could. Because the Stoic does not end manipulation with revenge, he ends it with removal, with stillness, with clarity that no longer needs to be understood to be true. You don't win against a manipulator by outsmarting him. You win by no longer playing. When he tries charm, you stay clear. When he tests your silence, you remain still. When he pretends nothing happened, you remember everything. And when he offers love without accountability, you don't trade your clarity for comfort. The Stoic path is not loud, it's not reactive, it's not about exposing him, it's about revealing yourself through boundaries, through stillness, through the quiet power of self-respect. Because the most terrifying thing to someone who controls through confusion is a person who can no longer be confused. So let him wonder, let him circle, let him repeat the old tactics, louder, sharper, more desperate. But you've already left the game. And that's what true peace looks like. Not revenge, not closure, just freedom, unshaken, unreachable, unavailable. That's the Stoic way.